Here's another short notebook thought that's kind of interesting. The first line I just write, I don't research anymore, which is kind of funny because I don't. And reading through the rest of it, I don't know. This notebook became like a narration of thoughts in the moment. I guess some people would call it a journal, but it's just so weird that I'm not sure that it is a journal. I don't know what it is. It's a brain dump, so it gets out of my head, but I can look at it later and be amused by it. And what I'm talking about by not researching anymore is I remember when I first started working in academics and education, we were talking about office hours. And I remember saying, well, what I think we need to do is XYZ. I was like, I think that's kind of a cool concept that we should do. And somebody asked me if I had seen a presentation at HLC that year. And I was like, I wasn't even working in education when that presentation happened. So no. And actually I had been to HLC once. It was as an employee in higher education. I worked in marketing at an institution where my wife also worked. She went to HLC and I took a vacation and went to Chicago and just hung out at coffee shops and things while she did the Higher Learning Commission stuff. And that was thoroughly enjoyable. Anyway, so the reason that I say that I don't research anymore is I've had a couple of those moments. I've said something and somebody's like, oh, that's so-and-so's idea. And it's like this assumption that a person can't come up with something in their own weird vacuum. And I started to wonder, I was like, well, have I read that before? Is that why I'm thinking what I'm thinking? Or was this an idea that I thought of? So when I have an idea of something, I like to kind of stew on it for a little while before I really do much research, just to kind of see where I go with it without an external influence. And then I do some research, usually lightweight. I have grad degrees. I don't want to dig into super heavy research. It's not something I enjoy like I once did when I was younger. But I find myself researching less than I once did, or maybe later in the process, because I want to think through an idea, and I sort of do want to develop an idea in my own weird vacuum just to see what I come up with. And then I'll go out and look at the research and say, okay, so somebody else kind of thought of it this way, and this is what the research says, and this is what their study did, and these are these things. And every once in a while, very rarely, but every once in a while, I come across something that it's a variation on something that's already out there, or it's never like completely new. It's enough that I guess you could do some research on it. I'm just not interested in doing so. Or it's just a minute variation that they probably covered, but it wasn't worth talking about. I don't know. It's really kind of an interesting thing, but I do find myself researching less than I used to. But the big one is much further down the line. I would have like the inklings of an idea, and then I would go dig into, academic research and going, okay, here's these 30 articles I'm going to consume about this idea. And then it would morph my idea essentially into what their idea was. Now I find myself trying to think it through before digging into research first, which is an interesting approach, especially with AI. I try to avoid AI as well for the same reasons, because I don't necessarily know what research it's digging into at that point. It causes me to have a lot of half-baked ideas that probably have really well-researched things out there that I just don't find because I don't research as heavily as I should. Again, a tiny little thing in my notebook that I find kind of amusing. I just think it's funny that I wrote it as I don't research anymore. I'm creating clickbait in my own notebook, which is hilarious to say the least, but it's very me at the same time.